Chapter 5. The warriors divided. Some pushed forward, cutting down the enemy forces still in shock. Others turned, shields raised, arrows clattering harmlessly against their defenses. The ambush, what should have been their downfall, was turned against them. Within minutes, the battle was no longer just a fight. It was a massacre. Abeni exhaled sharply as the tides turned in their favor. Her hands were still clenched. He knew. Yeshi, still watching the battlefield, smiled knowingly. Of course, he did. Abeni turned to her, eyes still burning with worry. And yet, he still let himself be the bait. Eshe let out a soft hum, tilting her head. Abeni swallowed, heart still racing. Zuberi fought as though he was untouchable, but no man was untouchable. She had almost lost him before she could even. She cut the thought off. Across the battlefield, Zuberi's blade cut down the last man standing. And just like that, it was over. The sun was dipping low when Zuberi returned to camp. His tunic was stained with blood. Some his, most not. His posture was still strong, unshaken. But Abini, she saw the exhaustion he would never show. She stepped forward before she could stop herself. You were wounded. Zuberi barely looked at her as he moved past. It is nothing. Abini's lips pressed into a thin line. Eshi, watching from the sidelines, simply smiled. Zala, sitting nearby, smirked. Our great warlord bleeds after all. Zuberi ignored them all, but as he disappeared into his tent, Abini followed. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Zuberi sat down, beginning to clean the wound on his shoulder. The gash was deep, but he showed no pain. Abeni crossed her arms. You let yourself be bait. Zuberi did not respond. You could have died. Still, silence. Abeni exhaled sharply. This man, this infuriating, brilliant man. Then, before she could stop herself, she took the cloth from his hands. He raised an eyebrow, but did not protest. She cleaned the wound herself, her touch firm, but careful. The silence stretched between them. Then, finally, she spoke. Don't do that again. Zuberi glanced at her. Do what? Abeni scowled. Play the unshakable warlord. Zuberi's lips quirked. I am the unshakable warlord. Abeni's glare deepened, but beneath her anger, there was something else. Something far more dangerous than any battle. And as Zuberi met her gaze, his own, calm, unreadable, he saw it. Abeni was falling. The first battle had been won, but enemies still lurked in the dark. Zuberi had conquered the battlefield, but now something else was trying to conquer him. A woman's heart. War is not over. Love is a different battlefield. The fires in camp burned low. The scent of charred wood and sweat lingered in the air as warriors rested, some tending wounds, others sharpening blades. But war was never just fought with steel. War was waged in whispers, in shadows. And tonight, the first pieces moved. The rider arrived at a grand palace carved from black stone, his horse foaming at the mouth from the brutal journey. Inside, seated on a throne of ivory and gold, King Rezi of the Eastern Territories listened. Zuberi leads them, the messenger panted. He is gaining strength. Beside Razi, his sister, Queen Nia, watched silently. Her fingers traced the rim of her goblet, expression unreadable. Then he is a fool, Razi chuckled. The messenger hesitated. He has taken 3 strongholds. The people flocked to him. Nia finally spoke, voice soft, like silk hiding a dagger. If he takes more, he will be unstoppable. Razi smirked. We will not stop him. He leaned forward. We will let him think he is winning. Then we will crush him from within. Naya tilted her head. And what if he does not fall? Razi grinned, eyes gleaming. Then we will make him bleed. Back at camp, Ishi sat before the fire, staring into the flames as the world blurred around her. She never forced her visions. They came when they wished, like whispers on the wind. And tonight, the fire whispered something dark. She saw Zuberi, kneeling, bleeding. She saw herself, swollen with child. She saw a hand reaching for his throat. Then, nothing. The vision shattered, and Aishi gasped. Her hands trembled. No, she whispered. She had seen his defeat, but she did not know when, or where, or who would deliver the final blow. The fire crackled, the shadows shifting. Aishi closed her eyes. The gods have chosen you, Zuberi. She exhaled shakily. But even the chosen can fall. Beyond the camp, Zuberi trained alone. His blade sank through the air, cutting through the silence. His body moved with calm precision. Controlled, unshaken, a shadow approached. Still fighting ghosts. He did not stop. The next battle is always coming. Zala stepped forward, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at her lips. You refuse to rest. Fine. She drew her blade. Fight me then. Zuberi finally turned, eyes steady. You challenge me again? Afraid I'll win? His gaze did not waver. No. Zala's smirk twitched. Then prove it. Zala was fast, faster than before, faster than anyone. Her blade cut through the air, aiming for his ribs. But Zuberi was a wall. Steel met steel. She twisted, spun low to sweep his legs. He jumped, landed without effort. She pressed harder, striking from every angle. For a moment, just a moment, she almost had him. But then, a mistake. Zuberi caught her wrists. A heartbeat later, her back hit the ground. His weight pressed into her, his sword at her throat. Zala's breath came quick, sharp. She grinned. Damn. Zuberi did not move, did not gloat, did not speak, only watched her. Something shifted. The fight had ended, but neither moved. The space between them tightened. Zala's chest rose and fell beneath him. Her lips parted, and then she kissed him, hard, fierce, like a warrior claiming what was hers. For the first time, Zuberi did not pull away. For the first time, Zala did not fight. And when she finally broke away, breathless, her voice was softer. You will be mine, Zuberi. He said nothing. He did not agree, did not deny. But in the moonlight, Zala swore she saw the slightest ghost of approval in his gaze. And that was enough. Back at camp, Abeni stood outside her tent. She saw Zuberi returning, and beside him, Zala. Something was different. Her jaw tightened. Deep in the shadows, Esha watched them all. The battles were just beginning. But the real war, the war for Zuberi's heart, that had already begun. Tonight, the first strike had already been made. Zuberi just didn't know it yet. In the grand halls of his palace, King Rassi watched the flames dance in the brazier before him. Beside him, his sister, Queen Naya, ran a finger along the rim of her goblet. Razi exhaled through his nose, unimpressed. He takes villages like a child collects stones. Let him. He is no child. Nia leaned forward, and neither are we. Razi's lips curled into a smirk. Then, let us remind him of that. He turned to the cloaked figure in the corner of the chamber. Begin. The figure bowed and disappeared into the night. Back at camp, Zuberi sat in his tent, sharpening his blade. The soft flicker of candlelight illuminated his chiseled features, his unwavering focus. The battle ahead would be different. He could feel it. But for now, there was still time. Abeni, Zela, and Eshe entered his tent, each carrying something: wine, fruit, and a rare moment of peace. Eshe settled beside him, her soft hands pressing against his shoulders. "You fight the war before it begins," she murmured, kneading his muscles. Zala smirked, leaning against the table. He wouldn't be Zuberi if he didn't. Abeni Everregal poured wine into a cup. "We should enjoy what quiet we have." Zuberi said nothing, but when Abeni offered him the cup, he took it. For the first time in a long time, the war could wait. Outside the tent, Zala and Eshe sat by the fire, watching the embers crackle. "You move like the wind when you fight," Eshe said suddenly. Zala glanced at her, then chuckled. "I used to be the slowest." Eshe raised a brow. "You!" "I was weak," Zala admitted. "My tribe does not let weak women exist, so I made myself strong, made myself fast, faster than all of them." Eshe smiled. "And now they won't give you the title you earned." Zala's fingers tightened around her blade. "No." Eshe reached out, brushing a stray lock from Zala's face. "Then they are fools." Zala looked at her, really looked at her. And for once, Zala had no sharp words to give, just silence and understanding. In the dead of night, Abeni received a letter. Her hands trembled as she read it. "Your presence is required, Princess. Your father demands it." She swallowed. To return home now meant stepping back into the cage she had fought to leave. But she had no choice. Slowly, she folded the letter, knowing what had to be done. Tomorrow, she would tell Zuberi. But for now, she let the warmth of the tent, the presence of the people she had come to love, keep her where she belonged, if only for one more night. Miles away, in the stillness of the night, a village burned. King Raz's first strike had landed, and soon Zuberi would be forced to answer. Abeni stood outside Zuberi's tent, the parchment in her hand, feeling heavier than any blade. She had faced battle, had stood beside him in war. But this, telling him she had to leave, this was the hardest fight yet. When she stepped inside, Zuberi was already awake, seated at the edge of his bedroll. The candlelight flickered across the hard angles of his face. He didn't turn to look at her, but he knew. "Speak," she swallowed. He always knew. "My father has summoned me back." Silence. Zuberi set down his blade, finally turning to her. "You intend to go?" It wasn't a question. Abeni lifted her chin. "I have no choice." Zuberi's dark eyes held her in place, unwavering, unshaken. "You always have a choice." Anger flickered in her chest. He made it sound so simple. "And if I stay, if I ignore my father's summons, what then?" Zuberi stood, stepping close enough that his presence became a weight around her. "Then you would not be the woman I respect." Her breath caught. Respect, not desire, not possession. Respect. And that meant more than any declaration of love. Abeni clenched her fists. "I will return," she said, almost defiantly. Zuberi nodded. "See that you do." For the first time, Abeni didn't know if she was leaving as his ally or as something more. And that uncertainty terrified her. Zuberi stood at the edge of the burning village, his warriors silent beside him. The scent of charred wood and flesh hung heavy in the air. The attack had been swift, merciless. King Razi had sent a message. He wants us to know he is watching, Zala muttered, arms crossed. No, Zuberi said, voice like iron. He wants us to bleed before the war begins. Ishi stood behind them, staring into the ruins, her face unreadable. He won't stop here, she murmured. He will strike again, from the shadows. Zuberi nodded. He already knew. Then we will not wait for him to come. He turned to his warriors, his voice carrying over the devastation. Razi believes he can burn our future before it begins. He is wrong. We do not break. We do not run. We carve our place into history with steel and blood. And by the time we are done, there will be nothing left of the man who tried to break us. The warriors roared. Zala grinned. Ishe, however, still watched the flames, because in her vision, it was not Razi who defeated Zuberi. And that truth gnawed at her like a blade beneath the skin. That night, away from the others, Zala and Aishe sat beneath the stars. Zala stretched her arms behind her head, glancing at the smaller woman. You're always watching. Aishe didn't flinch. I see more than most. Zala scoffed. Then tell me, Aishe the mystic, what do you see when you look at me? Aishe turned to her, gaze sharp. I see a woman who should have been a queen. For the first time, Zala didn't have a retort. Ishi leaned back on her elbows. And what do you see in me? Zala smirked. A woman who knows too much for her own good. Ishi chuckled, shaking her head. For once, there was no rivalry between them, just understanding. Zala nudged her shoulder. You watch over him too much, you know. Ishi smirked. And you fight for him too much. Zala snorted. Someone has to. For the first time, Zala and Ishi weren't just two women bound by Zuberi. They were sisters in battle, in struggle, in war. And when the time came, they would fight together or fall together. Abini left at dawn. The air was still, the morning mist clinging to the camp like an omen. She had fought battle beside Zuberi, had stood in the aftermath of blood and fire. But this, leaving him, it felt like the hardest battle yet. The road back to her homeland stretched endlessly before her. Each step felt like walking away from everything she had fought for. Her escort was small, just a handful of warriors her father had sent to retrieve her. But they were strangers. They spoke little to her, their gazes heavy with judgment. They still saw her as the princess who had run away. At night, she lay awake beneath the stairs, gripping the pendant around her neck, a token Zuberi had given her before she left. See that you return. His words echoed in her mind, steady and unwavering. Did he believe she would come back? Did she? For days, the weight of her family's expectations pressed against her chest, tightening like a noose. She had left them to find her own path. Now they called her back. But was she still the same woman they had once known? Or had she already given herself to another cause? Another king? She clenched her fists. She would find her answer soon enough. Back at the stronghold, Zubri stood before a map, his hands resting on the worn parchment. The village Razi had burned was only the first. More would fall if it did not move swiftly. Zala stood at his side, arms crossed. We should strike first. Yeshi shook her head. That is what Razi wants. He is drawing us into his game. Zuberi exhaled through his nose. Then we will make our own rules. He traced his fingers along the map, eyes dark with calculation. We will not chase ghosts. We will take what is ours, city by city, land by land. We will force Razi to fight on our terms. Zala grinned. Now, that's a war I can get behind. Asia, however, still watched him carefully. Her visions whispered to her, but she could not yet see the shape of their future, only that the path ahead was steeped in blood. The first real clash came at dusk. Zuberi and his warriors moved like shadows across the land, striking at a garrison Razi had stationed along the river. The battle was brutal. Steel met flesh. Blood painted the ground. Zala was a blur, faster than any warrior, striking like lightning. Zubri moved with precision, each strike calculated, each kill deliberate. The enemy fell before them, but not without resistance. One of Razi's commanders recognized Zuberi on the battlefield. You should have stayed in hiding, the man sneered. Before lunging forward, Zuberi blocked the attack with ease, twisting his blade into the man's ribs. The commander's body crumpled to the earth. I do not hide, Zuberi said coldly. By nightfall, the battle was won. But this was only the beginning, and in the distance, the real war loomed. When Abeni finally arrived at her father's palace, the walls felt taller, the shadows deeper. She stepped inside, her heartbeat steady, but her mind raced. Her father waited for her in the grand hall. His expression was unreadable. You have returned, he said, voice as heavy as stone. Abeni lifted her chin. I have. The silence stretched between them. Then her father leaned forward. Now tell me, my daughter, where do your loyalties truly lie? Abeni stepped through the towering gates of her father's palace, her boots pressing into the smooth marble floors. The air inside was cool, perfumed with a familiar scent of incense and aged wood. It felt the same. Yet, she was not the same. At the far end of the great hall, her father sat upon his carved wooden throne, draped in the finest silks, his face unreadable. His advisors flanked him like vultures, their sharp eyes appraising her as she approached. You have returned, he said at last, his deep voice echoing across the chamber. Abene halted a few paces before him, lowering herself into a practiced bow. You summoned me, father. He leaned forward slightly, fingers steepling beneath his chin. You will go to Chief Otieno. Abene's breath caught, though her expression remained composed. Otieno. Her father nodded. His village holds the finest steel in all of the 36 territories. With Ratzi on the move, we must secure it before he does. Abene's stomach tightened. She knew Otieno well. The old chief was stubborn as iron, and even less willing to bend. He despised her father, and she could not blame him. Still, she met her father's gaze evenly. And if he refuses, her father's lips curled into the faintest smirk. Then you will make him see reason. There it was, the unspoken demand, the expectation that had plagued her for years. Abeni was not merely a daughter. She was a tool, a diplomat to be wielded when it suited him. The same bitterness that had driven her away all those years ago threatened to rise again. But she was still loyal. So she bowed her head, her voice steady. Yes, father. The journey to Otieno's village took 3 days. The path winding through dense forests and rocky terrain. Unlike the grand palaces of her homeland, Otieno's domain was rugged and unpolished. The village was built around the steel mines, its people hardened by labor and survival. The air was thick with the scent of burning coal and molten metal, the rhythmic clang of hammers on iron filling the space like a heartbeat. Otieno's hut was unassuming, a simple wooden structure with animal hides covering the entrance. When Abene stepped inside, the old chief barely acknowledged her, his gnarled hands sharpening the blade with slow, deliberate strokes. Your father sent his daughter instead of facing me himself, Otieno muttered without looking up. Abeni exhaled through her nose, keeping her tone measured. He sent his best diplomat. Otieno let out a dry chuckle, finally setting the blade aside. His sharp eyes studied her, cutting through her practiced poise. You do not believe in the man you speak for. Abeni's spine stiffened. He is my father, and yet your heart is elsewhere. The words struck deeper than she cared to admit. Otieno watched her, then sighed. I am old. Go. I have seen rulers come and go, kingdoms rise and fall. I have learned to see who truly holds power and who merely wears a crown. He leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering oil lamp. You are wasted under your father's rule. Abeni swallowed hard, her throat tight. How was it that this man, this stubborn old chief, saw the truth so clearly? After a long pause, Otieno sat back and folded his arms. I will supply the steel. Relief flickered through Abeni until he continued. But only to you. She frowned. Not my father. Otieno smirked. I do not do business with men who see their own blood as a bargaining chip. Abeni stared at him, stunned. For the first time in her life, someone was offering her power, not because of her father, but despite him. And she took it. When she returned home, it was not as a daughter bringing a gift to her father. It was as a woman who had secured her own. Back at the stronghold, Zuberi stood on a ridge overlooking his warriors. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the training grounds. The air smelled of sweat and earth, the rhythmic clash of wooden weapons failing to tally. Zala wiped the sweat from her brow, rolling her shoulders. They're improving, but they're not ready. They will be, Zuberi said. Eshe, seated beneath the shade of a tree, watched him carefully. And when they are, Zuberi turned, his face unreadable. We take the river. Zala raised an eyebrow. That's a bold move. The river connects 3 strongholds under Razi's control. If we cut it off, we cut off his supply lines. Eshi's fingers traced patterns in the dirt. Her visions whispered to her, but for once she could not see beyond the path he had chosen. You are changing the future, Zuberi. Then we will carve our own. Zala grinned. Now, that's the kind of madness I follow. But Ishi's unease remained, because in every future she had seen, the river ran red with blood. Far away, in the grand palace of his capital, King Razi stood on his balcony, his gaze fixed on the plumes of smoke rising from a village in the distance. His sister stepped beside him, her silk robes whispering against the stone floor. They think they are winning, she mused. Razi smirked. Let them. She tilted her head. And what of Zuberi? Razi's grip tightened on the railing. He is a warrior. He fights with his hands. But war is not won by hands alone. He turned to her, his voice smooth, but laced with venom. Send word to our spies. It is time we remind them, power is not only taken with a blade, it is stolen from within. His sister smiled. Consider it done. And so, as Zuberi plotted his next conquest, and Abeni returned with new power, a shadow was already creeping toward him. The grand hall of Abeni's father's palace was thick with the scent of burning incense and tension. The flickering torches cast elongated shadows on the intricate carvings of warriors and gods that adorned the walls. The air was still, charged with an invisible weight, as Chief Otieno sat across from Abeni's father, his aged yet unyielding eyes locked onto the ruler of the Zundari capital. Abeni stood to the side, hands clasped, maintaining the poised facade of a diplomat, yet her heart drummed like war drums in her chest. This meeting would determine everything. Otieno's voice, deep and measured, cut through the silence. Let me make one thing clear. I will not be intimidated. Abeni's father, draped in luxurious silks, smirked, leaning back in his chair. You say this as if I have come to threaten you. Otieno let out a dry chuckle, rubbing his weathered hands together. Oh, but isn't that the way of kings? When words fail, your kind always turns to swords. Abeni's father's smirk faltered, but before he could respond, Abeni stepped forward, her voice smooth but firm. We are not here to make demands, Chief Otieno. We are here to forge an opportunity. Otieno shifted his gaze to her. Then speak, girl. Show me you are not just another pawn of your father. Abeni inhaled sharply, steadying herself. The steel your village produces is unparalleled. We understand its value, but trade must be mutually beneficial. Otieno raised an eyebrow. And what does your kingdom offer that I cannot get elsewhere? Abeni lifted her chin. The finest textiles in all 36 territories. The chief scoffed. Steel is the blood of war. I have no use for delicate silks. Abeni kept her expression unreadable. Then perhaps you would prefer something more substantial. Our kingdom also controls vast fisheries and grain fields. We can provide food for your people year-round. Otieno paused, stroking his beard. Now that is a trade I can't consider. Abeni's father opened his mouth to interject, but Otieno raised a hand. I will make this plain. I will trade food and textiles for my steel, but I will not trade with you. Her father's expressions darkened. What do you mean? Otieno's weathered face remained firm. I will only trade with Abeni. Silence fell over the room like a heavy storm. Otieno leaned forward, his eyes drilling into the king's. You are a man who sees his daughter as a means to an end. But I see her for what she truly is, a leader in her own right. My steel belongs to her now. If she wishes to share it with you, that is her decision. Abeni's father clenched his jaw. His pride was wounded, but he could do nothing. Otieno's alliances were strong. If he made an enemy of him now, it would not just be one chief he faced, but an entire coalition of warriors. Abeni remained still, feeling the weight of her father's furious glare. Otieno turned to her, his expression softer. The choice is yours, girl. Do with this gift what you will. For the first time in her life, she held the power. Back at the stronghold, Zuberi stood atop the rocky outcrop overlooking the valley below. His warriors were lined in formation, their spears glinting beneath the setting sun. The river stretched beyond them, its waters reflecting the amber sky. Beside him, Zala tightened the wraps around her wrists, her expression sharp. Razi will not expect us to strike this soon. Zuberi's face remained unreadable, which is why we strike now. Aisha stood behind them, the wind playing with her robes. I have seen much blood spilled here. Zuberi, are you certain of this? He did not waver. Blood will spill regardless. We will decide whose it is. Down below, Razi's forces had set up camp along the riverbanks. Their banners flapped in the wind, marking their territory. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. Zuberi raised his hand, signaling his warriors. And like shadows in the night, they descended. Spears clashed. The air was thick with war cries and the scent of blood. The river ran dark with the fallen. Zala was a whirlwind of speed, cutting down enemies before they could react. She moved like the wind, striking, evading, and striking again. Even her swift movements could not match the sheer brutality of Zuberi. He fought like a storm, unrelenting, calculated. His strikes were not reckless. They were precise, each movement designed to end a life with minimum effort, maximum efficiency. Amidst the chaos, Zuberi locked eyes with a soldier who hesitated, fear gripping him. At the sight of a true warrior, the man turned to run. Zuberi didn't allow it. With a single throw, his spear impaled the deserter's back. Razi's forces never stood a chance. As the last of them fell, the river, once pristine, ran red. Zuberi stepped over the bodies, retrieving his spear. His warriors awaited his command, breathing hard but victorious. He finally spoke. The river is ours. And with it, they had severed Razi's lifeline. In the capital, Razi stood before a map, the flickering candlelight illuminating his sharp features. His sister stood beside him, her dark eyes unreadable. They took the river. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Razi exhaled through his nose, unbothered. I expected them to. His sister frowned. You let them? No, Razi corrected. I let them believe they are winning. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. Tell our spies to move. We do not need the river when we can poison the well. His sister smiled, a dangerous curve of her lips. As you wish, brother. And so, as Abeni seized power, as Zuberi conquered the battlefield, a blade in the dark was already being sharpened. The war was far from over. Abeni has secured an alliance, but now she must decide whether to defy her father. Zuberi has won the battle, but Razi's war is far from finished. The spies have been unleashed.